Welcome to Coffee Talk with Liquidshano 1973. And now your host, me, Shane Lakita. Good morning, folks. It is Barry White time with my deep voice. No, I'm just kidding. So it is morning time. I'm up nice and bright and early to be able to get a podcast out today. I wanted to be able to chat with all of you before I get out on the road to be able to go out and make things happen on my regular job. But I had some things on my mind, so I wanted to catch up with you. I know I've been putting out the podcasts on Wednesday evening time frames, but I wanted to get this one out a little bit early because it's just something that's been searing in my brain a little bit. And being a Monday, what better day to do so, to kick everybody's week off, to kick my week off on the right foot and be able to continue to push forward. So first, I wanted to go over a couple things before we get into the meat of this podcast. I wanted to go over how much I really appreciated all of the feedback and the comments that I got from episode 142 and 141, where we talked about whenever you hear news that upsets you, how you react to that news and what direction you need to move in with that. So I was appreciative of some of the insight that people had shared with me, some of their own personal stories about not getting jobs that they had applied for, or hearing news that was just detrimental, or some devastating news that they heard and they had to rebound and bounce back from it. So I truly appreciate that. If you have not heard episode 142, check it out. Just pop right over and listen to it on any of the platforms that you have, whatever you're listening to this podcast on. So episode 141 was about what do you see in your reflection and why do you see that? So there was a little bit more introspection to be able to take a look at why you're seeing what you're seeing. If you're looking at yourself in the mirror, do you see somebody that's a champion? Do you see somebody that is a winner? Those kind of things. So check that episode out too. But again, I truly appreciate all of your insight, your candor, your honesty, some of your feedback that you were able to give to me about your own personal stories in those topics is really one of the reasons why I do this. One of the reasons why I hop on the microphone here to have these conversations, because really it's about a community. It's about all kinds of people getting together just to talk about or listen to stories of others to help people get through the things that they have to get through. Now, the second thing I wanted to go over was I went down 2 days ago to Massachusetts to go record 2 kitchen tables and a microphone, which is our YouTube channel. If you have not checked it out, please pop over to YouTube, type in 2KTM, and you'll be able to see me and Jonathan Giordano just rapping on the cameras, talking about all kinds of different things. But I know this week we talked a lot about social media. And we talked a lot about different chat boards and discussion boards and social media platforms and how it can be detrimental to you when you are playing in the social media space, where you're then comparing yourself to others and those kind of things. And we talked a lot about lifting others up. So do me a favor, pop over, subscribe to it if you haven't, so that way we can continue to build that YouTube channel and that YouTube presence and be able to keep moving forward. So I appreciate all of you guys, every single one of you, for listening. Thanks so much for hopping on here today and listening throughout this week, because I may not put one out on Wednesday, but who knows? It depends on if I've got some internal anguish or stuff going on in my brain to be able to put something out there. But let's get right into it here, okay? So if I'm about to head out on the road, it's a Monday. And I had all weekend. My family was actually out of town this weekend, so I spent some good time with a buddy of mine on Saturday evening, actually. And we were able to go out, just rekindle some stuff and talk about some old friendship stuff and this and that. So it was a great day, but other than that, Saturday and Sunday were pretty lazy and laid back. But I did pretty well with my eating, and I did pretty well with my own focus and direction and those kind of things. But one of the things that stood out to me on Saturday morning when I went down to record with John is I sat down and we were talking a lot about how I felt like a fraud almost. I felt like I was on a podcast talking about ways to lose weight or be better or just get to a more healthier spot of where you are. And here I am in a struggle a bit where I'm still only about 70 pounds down from where I was. Now, I use the word only because at one time I was down 105, almost 110. So it's all relative and it's all in my brain, and I get all that. But on the same token, I was sharing with them that I felt like I was talking about this stuff on a video channel on this, but I'm going through the muck. I'm going through some of the struggles, and I use my podcast to be able to get myself to the right place. But on the same token, I'm still not doing everything I need to do to be able to continue moving forward and be great at what I want to be able to keep pushing forward with. I'm not achieving a lot of the things that I want to achieve because stuff has happened, whether it's life happened, whether it's issues happen, whether it's job and work related stuff happens, whatever it is that you have in your life that's going on where I'm at. So here I am still in the muck and still kind of struggling and still kind of in the dark and gray area versus the positive place that I usually put myself in. So I talked to him a little bit about it. I said, hey, listen, what should I do here? I feel like I'm kind of a fraud. And of course, he validated everything that I'm doing. And he talked a lot about what my journey's been so far and how far I've already come. And I've done a lot of that. But one of the things he said to me he says, well, then why not turn that around? And I said to him, well, what do you mean? He goes, so you know what you've done before. You know what works. You know where you're at, where you're supposed to be. You know what it takes. You know how hard you worked. You know how all those things that you were doing that was working for you, for the recipe of success, for you to be able to be successful and be able to push forward. You know what to do. So why don't you just go do it? Let's just call it like it is. If you're not feeling good about where you're at right now, if you're not feeling good about what you're doing, then turn it around and go do what you have to do. So that way you don't feel like you're a fraud and you don't feel like you're somebody that's just preaching to the choir or gaining weight and then losing weight and then gaining weight. And you're on this little cyclical journey that you're on right now. And then you're telling others how to be successful in their journey and how they need to navigate what they're doing. You won't feel like a failure. You won't feel like somebody that is a fraud. You'll then feel like somebody that's, okay, well, I'm working it. And I know I can overcome that mediocrity stage and be able to move into excellence stage and keep moving forward. He says, just turn it around. So it got me thinking. So I drive all the way back home, went out with my buddy on Saturday night, spent Sunday watching TV, doing some stuff, got a little exercise, this, that, and the other, because the family was away. And so here I am on Monday, and I think to myself, okay, today's the new start. Today's the fresh start. Now, a lot of people don't like to use the whole concept of weekly restarts or weekly refocuses or whatever it is. And a lot of people will say, just keep doing what you're doing and keep fighting and keep focusing because this is a lifelong journey, which I completely understand. But today, I'm using the image of railroad tracks. So if I feel like I've been off the tracks a bit, I'm not off the rails, okay? So I'm not like in the ditch. I'm not wallowing in my sorrows and stuffing my face and just eating everything in sight like I used to do. Like I used to be able to get into the place where I was so struggling that I just couldn't get my head above water. And I was in the place where I was like, oh man, this is not good. But I knew, and the reason that I was feeling a little bit more like this in this capacity was I went to go get some jeans last week. I went to go get some jeans and some new shirts. And the shirts were fine, but the jeans were not fitting the way that I once was. So it's kind of one of those moments where you're feeling kind of down about yourself and you're like, oh man, here we go. And it was kind of like the wake-up call that I needed. And then when John stated that to me, that was the major wake-up call that I needed to say, okay, listen, if you want to change it, you got to change it. We say in business a lot of times, if you either have to change or you have to change, which means you either have to change your behaviors, your patterns, your stuff that you're working on, the way you focus, the way you act, the way your behaviors, all those things, or you have to change jobs. So for me, there's no option to change back to the way that I was. So my only option is to change to make sure that I keep pushing forward and digging. Now, I can either be in maintain phase or I can be in lose phase. So I've got that choice that I can really get into. And when I look at a set of railroad tracks, which I'll put on the actual post here, and I'm going to write about it a little bit on Coffee Talk this morning, right before I head out on the road. When I look at the railroad tracks, I think of one thing. You can either be off the rails and you can be down there in the muck, really in the muck, and not be able to get your head above water, which we all have been there when we struggle and we're just not able to see the light, and there's so much going on and it's just overwhelming and there's no end in sight. We've all been there. And then I've got the one where I'm kind of off track. I got one of the wheels of the train is a little bit off the track, just not necessarily centered. And I'm feeling like, I'm struggling to go as fast as I really optimally can. I feel like I'm not going as efficiently as I can. And I feel like I'm not going as straight and narrow and getting to where I've got to get to towards my destination as much as I can. So I feel like I'm just a little bit off track. So today is the day that I got to put myself back on track. Now, the third option of railroad tracks, as we all know, is when both of those wheels are sitting right on the track and you are going optimal speed and you are hauling ass getting to where you got to get to because you are a well-oiled machine. You're eating right, you're doing the right things, you're exercising right, your head's right, everything's good to go, you're in the right space. And a lot of us have been there too. So I've got a good wide range of knowledge to be able to look into and tap into and dig into. So I've got the one where I'm in the muck and I can't breathe and I'm just eating my arm pretty much because I just can't see above water and that's what I'm doing. And I've got the one where I'm right now, I'm on the rails, but I'm not necessarily centered. I'm not necessarily feeling like I'm in a good place. I've lost a lot of weight total, but I'm not where I need to be because I feel like I'm gaining in certain areas and I need to keep pushing forward and keep fighting and keep digging in and finding a reason a lot of times to be able to continue to fight. We talk a lot about our whys and making sure that we keep things simple and keeping things relevant to us. And we keep things in our line of sight and we make sure that we remind ourselves why we're doing this and why we keep fighting for it, right? We all do that. But outside of that part of it, I still have to find a reason sometimes to be able to make sure I eat healthy or make sure I don't eat this or I do eat that. And it's still a chore at times. And when I was in the zone, I didn't feel like it was a chore. I felt like it was just something like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going. I'm feeling good. I'm in the space. I'm rocking it out. I'm doing all the things I have to do. So today, being a Monday, what better day to be able to say to yourself, okay, back on track. Got to be able to give myself the tools to be able to move forward. That's first of all. First of all, I got to be able to give myself the restrictive areas that I got to get into, right? Because I know what I need to do. I know what I need to track. I need the calories I need to chase, the points I want to be able to play in, all the different things that I'm trying to be able to know. I know what all those are, and there's my framework of structure that I need. So I know what that is. The second thing I have to do is, if I'm back on track, my mind is in the right place. So I've got to be able to sit down and tell myself every day, and I've got to give myself a gut check and a mind check. Every morning, I've got to tell myself, okay, this is my day. I've got to keep pushing forward. This is where I'm at with it. Not to say that could be a chore, because it can be laborious to be able to do something like that. But what I mean is that I've got to get in the right frame of mind, because if I don't dig into what the mind thinks, I'm not going to be able to just sit around the structure and be able to keep pushing forward, because I can easily count a bunch of calories. But if my brain's not right and I'm not thinking of the right things and doing the right things and know what my triggers are and those kind of things and be proactive and listen to my cues and those kind of things and know what I'm doing, then I'm never going to be able to be successful long term on this journey. Now, I'm in my mid 40s and I'm thinking to myself, man, I want to make sure that I live the rest of my life healthy. I want to make sure I live the rest of my life in a place where people enjoy being around me because I'm not depressed. I want to make sure that I live the rest of my life as a good dad and a good husband. When my son graduates in 5 years, he's off to college. He's doing his thing. Now, the wife and I, here we are, just you and I, and maybe a dog, and we're traveling around and doing stuff. I want to feel good about myself so that way I know that I can represent well for my wife. These are things that are priorities for me that I've got to keep pushing forward to. So today being a Monday, is my reset day. So here's another concept, another thing that I was thinking of this morning. There was two directions I wanted to move in with this. It was going to be either, do I use the railroad theme of knowing that I got to get back on track and make sure that both wheels are on the tracks and it's greased up, ready to go, and I'm rolling down the track and I got to get things moving the right direction? Or do I use this as a pull the alarm moment? Now, let me explain a little bit of that too, because pulling the alarm can come in many different fashions. Many of you guys know when you were in school, kids would pull the alarm and then the fire alarm would go off, everybody would go outside, all that good stuff. But I use this terminology in business a lot of times when I'm talking to an owner of a business that I'm working with. And we sit down and we talk about, okay, so there's some telltale signs of where your business is going, whether you're profitable, if you're on the books, if your inventory is good, or you're in the red a little bit here. We got to take a look at that part of the business. How about over here where you're looking at that part of the business? And then if you see some trends happening where they're happening more and more and more often, I usually use the term of it's time to pull the alarm. And pulling the alarm isn't to create panic and chaos or anything like that. It's nothing like that. What pulling the alarm does is it gives you the framework of knowing the time is now, because I've got to get in front of it before it becomes an issue down the road. where I can proactively pull the alarm to change the behaviors or change the landscape or change things around to it to be able to make sure that we're moving forward versus a panic stage, chaotic moment where I'm pulling the alarm after it becomes too late. So when do you pull the alarm? When do you get to a point where you reach up and you say, okay, I'm not feeling that great about what's going on right now? Or do I justify it with the fact that, oh, I got a bunch of stuff going on in my life. I got a bunch of stuff going on in my journey. I got, all these different issues. My thyroid's acting up, this, that, and the other. I'm taking my medication, but is my medication on point right now? All these other things that you're thinking of that are running through your mind. You got to think to yourself, when do I pull the alarm early enough that it doesn't become a reactionary pull, but rather a proactive pull? This is something big to think about, because that's where the brain work happens. That's where I've got to dig in to know when I've got to be proactive versus reactive, to know what my triggers are, to know what my cues are, to watch for my trends. If I'm watching for trends in business where I see red lines or I see things like we're not financially stable here, or I'm drilling right down to the minute details of a business to be able to know that we've got to get proactive about things and put measures in place and those kind of things to make sure that your business is running smooth. Why can't I do that in my life? Because I can be proactive. This is where the brain work for me happens, where I've got to dig in and know exactly how I'm thinking, where I'm going, and how I'm feeling at those moments in time. Because then I can say to myself, I want to be proactive right now. Now, this pull the alarm moment here is, for me, that I was telling you about, being a Monday and being the I want to get back on track kind of days. This is a moment that I feel like I'm being more proactive than reactive. Because reactive would be if I put all that weight back on and I'm back up to 365 and I totally feel like a failure and I'm totally sitting back going, this is the worst thing in the world, and now I need to pull the alarm because it's way too late. I'm back in that pre-diabetic phase. I'm back in the place where I'm high blood pressure is back up, all those things. And I'm in a reactive alarm pull. And here I am looking at my journey in general at those phases where I'm like, I'm such a failure. Well, right now, if I'm proactive and I'm thinking to myself, the trends are that I've gained little bit by little bit by little bit, and then I lose, and then a little bit, and I'm not eating everything I should, and I'm not drinking everything that I should. I'm not drinking enough water, the little details. I'm not getting walks in. It's winter season. I've got the winter blues on, all those different things that we got going on. And now I'm being proactive because now I can look at my journey and I can say to myself, okay, buddy, listen, it's time to pull the alarm. Here's some things that we can do to change the path of where we're at. Get back on track. If there are railroad tracks is the image that you might see in your brain to be able to know I've got to get back on the track to success, then what are the things that you do most when you're successful? Remember, we always talk about writing down the positives, writing down the things that you've done in the past that has been successful. So I can give you the list of the things that I was doing that was successful to me. And it wasn't running marathons, and it wasn't lifting heavy weights, and it wasn't going crazy. It was simple. It was control your eating, watch what you eat, don't always go up for seconds and thirds, eat till you're full, and then walk just about every day. That's it. It seems so simple. Now, mind you, that might have worked for me a few years ago. And between 42 and 45 years old, my metabolism changes. Your body starts to change as you get older. Little things change where you have to acclimate and adjust. And I get all that. I really do. But I know what works right now. I know what works just a year and a half to 2 years ago. So I've got to get back to the basics of knowing what works and grinding it out. Get back on track with the behaviors that I'm looking at. Get back on track with the way that I feel about myself. Get back on track with everything. The call to action is right now. And if you're feeling me right now and you're in the same shoes as I am, or maybe you've gained some and maybe you're losing a little and maybe you go into hiding and then you don't talk about it or anything like that. The other part that John and I talked about on the episode of Two Kitchen Tables on a Microphone, episode 15, we talked about not hiding. not hiding behind. When you're in social media, a lot of times, if you're feeling good, you're out there, you're talking about it, you're spreading the word, you're doing everything you got to do. Boom, I'm feeling great, got pictures, got selfies, feel awesome, look good, all those things. But when you're not feeling that great about yourself, guess what happens? We go silent. We go quiet. We don't talk. We hide. We don't go out as much. We don't take photos. None of that stuff. We do all those things. Don't do that. This is what I mean by pulling the alarm. Get back to the things that you know and love. If you're not that happy with where you're at right now, then today's the day to change. But don't forget all the good things that you do to stay in the positive space that you need to stay in. Because those positive things that you're doing right now, you can build on the momentum to be able to push forward. I know at the end of the day right now, even though this is a refocus day, when it comes to eating and it comes to exercise, for me, right? This is just for me. But I know how many things I'm doing that are positive that I can lean in on to know that I can use any of those things to be able to work on the things that I know I need to work on. Because there's a lot of things that I'm doing really well. And I got to remember that. So the brain work is the important piece to what I'm talking about today. Get right in the head, get right in your focus, get right in your plan, get right in all those things, and get back on track. Because if you're feeling like you're off track and you're feeling you're flailing a little bit off to the left, off to the right, those kind of things, tracks aren't oiled, they're not greased, and they're not on the rails. Let's get back on the rails and let's do some great things today. You deserve it. I deserve it. We all deserve to be great. We all deserve to achieve great things. And if you're not feeling up to par, fix one or two little things to be able to get yourself back to where it is and use Monday as the catalyst. Even though, like I said, a lot of people don't necessarily feel like we should have to refocus, refire. Screw that. Today is your day to refocus and refire, get back on track, and let's go kick some tail. All right? Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to Coffee Talk with Liquidshano 1973 podcast. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and other social media platforms at Liquidshano 1973. And if you could do us a favor, pop on over to iTunes and show us some love and leave some feedback there for us. Talk later.